Hey there, welcome to Sleepy History Secrets, the channel where history gets bleak, absurd, and oddly relaxing. Tonight, we travel to one of the coldest places ever mistaken for courage, the Eastern Front. Here, a bottle was as powerful as a bullet, and sometimes far more dangerous. It's a story of men who froze while feeling warm, who sang through hunger, and who saluted with shaking hands. Because when the Soviet state issued its soldiers a daily ration of vodka, it didn't just lift morale, it blurred the line between bravery and slow self-destruction. Before you settle in, take a quiet moment to like the video or subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy falling asleep to humanity's bad decisions. And maybe let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's strangely comforting to imagine people scattered across the world, each drifting off to stories of freezing boots and questionable government policies. Now, dim the lights. Let the sound of snow and distant artillery fade somewhere behind you, and let's walk slowly into that winter together, where the air burns, the ground drinks blood, and the only warmth left comes from a small metal cup filled with liquid fire. You begin before dawn, though dawn feels like a rumour someone made up to keep hope alive. The world is a single colour, the colour of exhaustion. Snow squeaks beneath your boots like thin ice cracking over an endless lake. You march because stopping means freezing, and freezing means becoming part of the landscape, another pale outline swallowed by frost and silence. The wind doesn't blow so much as accuse. It cuts through the fabric of your coat, which was once brown, but is now stiff with salt and old sweat. Your breath escapes in tiny ghosts. You watch them drift away like deserters. Every step is a negotiation with your own bones. Your boots are stuffed with straw, the kind of straw that smells faintly of animal and memory. It was once meant for feeding horses, but the horses are gone now, eaten, buried, or remembered too fondly to admit the truth. Each stride grinds your toes against frozen leather. They have stopped hurting, which is its own kind of warning. The man ahead of you carries his rifle over one shoulder, like a burden he might drop if no one is watching. The man behind you breathes too loudly, a wet rasp that sounds like something rusting from the inside out. None of you speak. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been said by the wind, and it's better at swearing than you are. In your pack there's a crust of bread that could break teeth if you still trusted your teeth. A dented tin cup clinks against your canteen, the one filled not with water, but with something stronger, something that smells like regret pretending to be courage. The vodka ration. One small cup a day, about 100 grams, enough to make you forget you're still. Here, the others call it the people's thermometer. The officers call it discipline. You call it tomorrow's headache. When the order comes to halt, it's not to rest, but to reorganize despair. Men collapse into the snow and light small fires out of frozen wood that doesn't want to burn. The flames hiss and cough, like they too are tired of this war. Someone passes around the flask. It's metal, dented, and smells faintly of kerosene and ghosts. You take a sip. It burns so sharply you can almost hear it. It's the kind of heat that convinces your body you're safe for a moment, while quietly undoing everything that keeps you alive. The warmth climbs your throat, spreads across your chest, and tells your blood, relax. Your blood listens, which is the problem. You start to feel light, then you start to feel nothing. Across the field, artillery speaks in dull thunder. The sky flashes, then forgets what it was doing. Someone laughs too loudly. Someone else starts to cry. You pretend not to hear either. Vodka's made both of them reasonable reactions. In the distance, a cart groans under sacks of potatoes and ammunition. The driver has tied an empty bottle to the rear so it clinks like a charm. A little glass prayer against bad luck. It doesn't work, but it sounds like hope, and that's close enough for tonight. You remember home sometimes. The smell of bread, the sound of boots on a wooden floor, your mother saying, "Drink only to celebrate." You wonder what she'd call this. When night comes, it doesn't fall, it seeps. The cold sneaks into every seam, every joint. Your body curls in on itself as if it's trying to remember a warmer version of you. The stars look like holes punched in a sheet of black iron. Somewhere behind them, someone must be watching. You hope they're not sober. A lieutenant stumbles past, barking orders that have already frozen mid-air. His nose is red, his words slurred. He waves his pistol like he's conducting a symphony only he can hear. You wonder if he knows you can see the bottle in his coat pocket. You wonder if he cares. You huddle near a fire built from scrap and superstition. Someone throws a log on it, someone else throws up beside it. It's all part of the same ritual. You raise your tin cup toward the sparks and whisper, to warmth, however short-lived. The others nod, and for a few seconds you all look human again. Then the fire fades, the snow takes back the ground, and you march once more, because that's what's left to do when you can't feel your feet, your fingers, or your faith. The vodka will come again tomorrow, cold as mercy, bright as punishment, and you will drink, because that's what survival tastes like here. Morning begins the way it always does here, with the sound of teeth trying to bite through something that was once bread. You turn the crust in your hand, knock it against your helmet, and listen to the dull, heavy tap. It could break a window. It could probably break your will if that hadn't already been done by the weather. The bread isn't fresh. It isn't even fully bread anymore. It's a fossil of better days, baked too long, frozen overnight, and carried too far. You chew because there's nothing else to do with it. The sound in your head is gravel turning against itself. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is rationed by the gram and seasoned with imagination. A single slice of onion, a few beans if the supply truck survived the night, and a ladle of soup so thin it reflects the sky. The men joke that it's made from wallpaper paste. The officer swears it's barley. You decide not to ask who's lying because it doesn't matter. The important thing is to swallow before the soup freezes again. Someone pours melted snow into a tin cup and calls it tea. It's more like a dare than a drink. It smells faintly of smoke and iron because everything here smells of smoke and iron. You take a sip and it tastes the way rust feels on your tongue. Metallic, bitter, and older than it should be. It warms nothing. The others joke that it's good for the teeth, which none of you have left in great condition anyway. The word hunger has lost its meaning. It's no longer an ache or an urge. It's a background noise like the hum of the cold or the artillery in the distance. The body adjusts. It forgets what satisfaction feels like and replaces it with endurance. When you find a piece of lard or a crumb of sausage, you close your eyes before biting, so for a moment you can pretend it's something from home. That trick stops working after a few weeks. A corporal next to you breaks his crust in half and hands it over. You stare at him for a second, suspicious of kindness, then take it anyway. It's hard to say thank you when your lips have cracked open, so you just nod. He shrugs, then pulls out his flask. The same dented metal container every man carries. Inside, not water, never water. The liquid glows faintly amber in the grey light, a promise and a threat in equal measure. He offers it. You hesitate. You always hesitate. Then you drink. The vodka burns its way down like a fuse being lit. You cough once, hard, then smile, because that's what the others do. It's supposed to be warmth, though you know it isn't. It's a trick. It convinces the body that blood is moving, when in truth the blood is surrendering. Still, it works long enough to make your hand stop shaking. The men laugh after drinking. It's not joy, it's recognition. You can see it in their faces, the brief relief of becoming lighter than your own weight. For a few minutes, everyone is louder, braver, funnier. The jokes aren't clever, but they feel necessary. Someone toasts, to lunch that never comes. Another answers, to the officers who keep it that way. Even the officer laughs, which makes you laugh harder because it's safer that way. A young recruit, barely 20, pulls out his ration card and waves it like a flag. It says I get my 100 grams, he declares, grinning with lips that have started to bleed. No one corrects him. The vodka ration is sacred. It's the only order that's never delayed. You remember hearing the quartermaster call it the people's thermometer, as if patriotism could be measured in small, cold cups. After a while, someone starts singing. The song has no melody, only rhythm. Boots tapping in snow, spoons clinking on metal. It's a folk tune about spring, which feels like blasphemy this deep in winter. The voices are ragged, half-hearted, but they're human, and that's rare enough to feel important. You join in quietly, though your throat aches and your stomach twists. It's hard to sing when your breath smells of grain alcohol and empty promises. When the song ends, silence returns, as if embarrassed to have left. You watch a crow land on a nearby fence post. It tilts its head, looks at you, and doesn't move. The bird is too well fed for your comfort. You imagine it eats better than you do. You imagine it watching from tree to tree, waiting for the next man to fall asleep and not wake up. The thought isn't pleasant, but it passes the time. By afternoon, the sun appears for a few pale minutes, just long enough to remind everyone what they're missing. You spread your coat open to catch the light, but it barely touches you. The snow reflects it back into your eyes until you can't tell what's brightness and what's pain. You feel dizzy, though that might be the vodka, or the hunger, or both. You've stopped keeping count. Orders arrive, march again. You pack your crusts, your flask, your weariness. The sergeant yells something about glory, but no one hears it. The sound of boots scraping frozen earth drowns everything else. The column moves like a single tired animal. You imagine from above it must look like a trail of ants wandering through ash. You stumble once, catch yourself, and keep walking. The snow underfoot has turned grey with soot and blood. You wonder if it's possible for snow to get tired too. You imagine it sighing each time another soldier falls. The sun sinks, though it never really rose. Ahead, you see the smoke from the next camp. You'll eat again soon. Another crust, another cup, another lie told kindly to the body. The night wind picks up, smelling faintly of fuel and burnt grain. Someone behind you says, "I hope the vodka's still cold." Everyone laughs. It's the only warmth left. When you finally reach the fire, it's small and uneven, made from wet wood and someone's broken sled. You sit close enough to feel your eyelashes stiffen in the heat. The cook ladles something into your cup. It's grey, thick, and probably dangerous. You drink anyway. You can't taste anything now, which helps. A familiar hand passes you the flask again. You don't ask whose it is. You drink because it's there. The liquid burns, then fades, then whispers something cruel. That you'll survive the night. Maybe. You close your eyes and let your head rest against your pack. The sounds around you blur into one long sigh. Fire, snow, breath. The rhythm of a world trying to end quietly. Tomorrow will bring another march, another crust, another cup. But for now, the heat in your chest feels almost real, and that's enough. They call it that with a straight face, the people's thermometer. A small cup of vodka issued each day, officially, nationally, scientifically, as the cure for despair. The paperwork says it warms the spirit. No one mentions that it also erases it. You line up with everyone else, shuffling forward in the cold metal cup in hand. The line looks like a factory assembly, except what's being produced is forgetfulness. A soldier with frost in his beard stands ahead of you, stamping his boots to feel something. Anything. The man behind you hums a tune without melody. Somewhere near the front, a sergeant calls out names as though announcing lottery winners. Each name earns a nod, a small paw, a brief spark of gratitude. The sound of liquid hitting metal repeats down the line like a heartbeat, soft and rhythmic. When your turn comes, the sergeant fills your cup, barely looking at you. He doesn't measure. He's poured the same amount 1,000 times before. You thank him because that's what custom demands. He grunts, already on to the next man. You lift the cup, tilt your head back, and let the burn happen. It's cold going down, hot in the stomach, a small betrayal of physics. You exhale steam that smells of grain and survival. The first sip always feels like a blessing. The second feels like an apology. The third, if you're lucky enough to sneak it, feels like confession. The vodka doesn't just dull the cold, it rearranges it. The pain moves from the body to the edges of thought, where it lingers quietly. It gives your mind the illusion of control, which is the only kind of control that still exists. The official name for the ration is Combat Supply Number 33. On paper, it sits neatly between boots and bullets. The report writers even describe it as a moral stabilizer, as if it were a piece of equipment. The Soviet state doesn't say vodka, it says standard issue fortification fluid. You imagine an officer somewhere, typing those words with a straight back and an empty conscience. There are rules, of course. You drink only after duty, never before battle. You toast only to the motherland, never to yourself. You never refuse your portion, because that would look suspicious, unpatriotic even. But rules in the snow are like footprints. They disappear faster than they're made. The soldiers have their own ceremonies. Some tap the rim of the cup 3 times before drinking, as if to wake the spirits inside. Others pour a few drops on the ground for the dead, though. The ground is too frozen to care. A few keep their ration in small glass bottles, carried close to the heart for warmth. They call them pocket suns. Each one burns out eventually. The officers have their own bottles too, bigger ones, hidden in their coats, beside maps they never use. They claim it's medicinal to prevent infection of morale. When the men see them drinking, they look away. Respect is easier than confrontation. Everyone pretends not to notice that command and addiction share the same vocabulary: order, ration, obedience. After the daily issue, camp feels almost festive. A few men sing, others joke in broken whispers. The firelight catches on metal cups, making them glow like relics from a lost religion. You sit with your back against a crate, feeling the heat of the drink drift through you in uneven waves. The cold doesn't leave, it just waits. Someone tells a story about a general who once banned vodka for a week. Morale collapsed by day 2, mutiny by day 3. The ban ended quietly on day 4. The storyteller laughs, but it's a hollow sound like wind moving through empty helmets. No one doubts the story, because it feels true even if it isn't. You remember the first time you were issued the ration. It felt ceremonial, almost holy. Men raised their cups, shouted slogans, kissed medals that weren't theirs. The air smelled of wood smoke and anticipation. The toast was simple. To the motherland, may she never run dry. You drank because everyone else did, and in that moment, you felt part of something larger than hunger. Now it just feels like maintenance, like oiling a machine that still won't run. One man in your squad, a quiet one from Minsk, saves half his portion each day. He pours it into a canteen marked with red paint, says he's collecting courage for when it's really needed. He guards it like treasure. You sometimes wonder what day he's waiting for. The ration is supposed to be exactly 100 grams, but no one counts. Some days it's a little more, others a little less. The numbers don't matter. The ritual does. It's the rhythm of the front: march, eat, drink, freeze, repeat. The vodka fills the gaps where prayer used to live. It's simpler to believe in something you can taste. Later that night, the temperature drops even lower. The air feels thick enough to chew. You pull your coat tighter, though it doesn't help. The wind whistles through every hole in logic and faith. The flask in your pocket clicks softly against your belt, a sound you've come to associate with comfort. You take another sip, slow and deliberate. It burns exactly the way you expect, which feels like stability. The men are quiet now. The singing has stopped. The fire has died to a dull red glow, no higher than a child's heartbeat. One soldier stares into the embers as if expecting them to speak. Another traces a finger around the rim of his cup, hypnotized by its shape. You lie back, eyes open, watching your breath rise and disappear. They say vodka keeps you warm. Maybe it does, if you only measure warmth by temperature. But lying there, half awake, you realize it keeps something else alive. The thin thread that ties all of you together. The shared belief that for one brief moment each day the cold doesn't win. It's not truth. Not really. But belief doesn't have to be true to work. Tomorrow you'll line up again, cup in hand, waiting for the sergeant and his bucket of forgetfulness. The same faces, the same coughs, the same jokes. You'll drink, not because you're thirsty, but because stopping would feel too final. The vodka will burn, then soothe, then vanish, leaving only the faint taste of iron on your tongue. You'll call it warmth, because that's the word you've been given, and the state will call it loyalty, because that's the word it prefers. You tell yourself the heat means you're alive. It's an easy lie, and a popular one. The vodka slides down your throat and spreads a glow through your chest, a small rebellion against the frost. For a minute, you almost believe it works. Then the wind arrives again, not a gust, but a verdict, and the truth seeps back in. Warmth is not survival here, it's a misunderstanding. The medic once explained it, very calmly, as though explaining why birds fly south. Alcohol, he said, makes the blood vessels open wider, drawing warmth to the surface of the skin. The body feels warm because it's losing its heat faster. You nodded, trying to look thoughtful, though you were already thinking about your next drink. Science makes sense when you're sober, but then again, so does despair. You've seen what happens when the trick goes too far. A man sits by the fire laughing at his own jokes, sleeves rolled to the elbow, steam rising from his skin. He swears he's fine. He swears he's hot. An hour later, his fingers are the colour of bad fruit. Another hour, and they break off like twigs when someone tries to remove his gloves. No one mentions it aloud, but every man there keeps drinking. Logic can wait until spring. The human body is strange under siege. You can feel everything and nothing at once. The cold stiffens the face until even the expression of pain freezes halfway. A smile, a grimace, a grim kind of acceptance. They all look the same here. The vodka turns that numbness into comfort, the same way a candle turns darkness into shadow. It doesn't save you. It only makes the dying slower and more polite. The officers call it courage in liquid form. The men call it heat with a deadline. You take a small sip, not because you want to, but because it's what everyone does before the night shift. The first swallow bites like frostbite in reverse. It's sharp, punishing, and strangely familiar. You hold the cup in both hands as though it might run away. The smell fills your nose, thick and chemical, the scent of wheat that gave, up on being food. Around the fire, the men tell stories of warmth like fairy tales. One says his grandmother used to sleep on a stove back in her village, wrapped in furs surrounded by cats. Another says he once owned a coat so thick it could stand upright without him inside it. You listen, half smiling, half remembering that memory is its own kind of heat, fleeting, glowing, and gone by morning. Someone tries to dry his socks over the flames. They smoke, then catch fire. Everyone laughs. The laughter of men who have forgotten how to be horrified. The burning cloth smells like something between wool and sin. The man slaps it out with a gloved hand and shrugs. At least they're warm now, he says. You laugh because it's easier than thinking about how cold tomorrow will be. The vodka gives everything a dreamlike edge. The snow outside the camp looks softer, almost inviting. You stare at it too long, and it starts to look like a bed. The medic warned about that too. Men who drink too much sometimes wander off, looking for quiet places to sleep. They are found later, lying peacefully, eyes open, surrounded by perfect undisturbed snow. The officers call it exposure. The soldiers call it surrender. You remember one who didn't come back. His name is already fading, replaced by the memory of his last joke. He'd said the cold couldn't kill him because he was already dead inside. Everyone laughed. The next morning they found him smiling, arms crossed over his chest like he'd just finished a good nap. No one laughs at that story now, but everyone keeps repeating it. The vodka makes repetition feel like prayer. When the wind shifts, the smoke from the fire wraps around you. It smells of pine, oil, and something human underneath. Your clothes are stiff, heavy with frozen sweat. Your hands tremble, partly from cold, partly from the slow aftertaste of the drink. You flex your fingers, feel them move sluggishly, like they belong to someone else. The body is still here, you think. The mind just wanders ahead to warmer places. Across the camp, an officer recites regulations from memory, slurring slightly. He says the vodka ration is not indulgence but strategy. He says the Red Army does not freeze. You glance at the frost forming on his moustache and decide not to argue. When he walks away, you notice his footprints glow faintly in the firelight before vanishing under new snow. Even authority can't stay warm for long. The stars tonight look sharper than usual, as if cut from glass. They flicker in the distance like sparks from a dying forge. You wonder how something so far away can still look warm. The thought is strangely comforting. Maybe warmth is just distance measured incorrectly. You pour the last drops of vodka into your cup. There's barely enough for a mouthful, but you lift it anyway. The others see and nod. You raise it toward the sky, the stars, the invisible promise of dawn. To warmth, you whisper. However brief, the men echo you softly. Cups clink. The sound is delicate, almost kind. The drink burns again, gentler this time. You close your eyes and let the sensation settle. Inside your head, the warmth spreads outward until you can no longer tell where it ends. It feels almost holy. The irony doesn't bother you anymore. Out here, faith comes in many forms. Prayer, fire, alcohol, denial. They all work for a while. The fire starts to fade. You add another log, though you know it won't last the night. Nothing does. The wind sighs through the trees like an old teacher disappointed in his students. You pull your coat tighter and lean closer to the embers. The warmth touches your face like a lie told gently. You accept it anyway. When you finally drift into sleep, it's not rest. It's suspension. The line between heat and cold blurs completely. Somewhere in your half-dream, you walk through snow barefoot, unafraid, wrapped in the comfort of nothing. The last thing you remember before the dark takes you is how warm it feels. Morning begins with silence thick enough to break. The snow around the camp is unmarked, smooth as porcelain, except for a few small trails leading away, footsteps that don't return. You know what that means, though no one says it. The men who walked out in the night believed they were warm. The vodka had told them so. They fell asleep in the open, smiling. The officers call it hypothermia. The soldiers call it peace on credit. You pull your gloves on. They're stiff, more ice than cloth. Inside them, your fingers are wrapped in rags, which are wrapped in paper, which is wrapped in prayer. The nails are black. The skin peels like paint. You blow into your hands, but the air that comes out is colder than the air that went in. The medic walks past, muttering numbers to himself, as if statistics could hold the world together. He carries a small notebook filled with names, dates, and brief remarks like fingers gone or right foot questionable. He stops near a fire, unwraps a man's hand, and studies the grey flesh beneath. Then he sighs and begins cutting. The knife doesn't make a sound. You look away, pretending to check your rifle. There's comfort in routine. The soldiers have developed a habit of assigning meaning to everything. If frost forms on the barrel of your gun, it means good luck. If your breath drifts straight upward instead of sideways, it means a letter will come. You don't believe any of it, but belief is another kind of insulation. It traps the mind before the cold can. Someone starts humming. It's not a tune, more a vibration against the cold. Another voice joins, then another. Soon there's a rhythm, uneven, quiet, but present. The song is about spring, of course. They always are. It's an old folk melody, sung out of habit, older than the men who sing it. The words don't promise warmth, they promise memory. You listen, eyes half closed, as the sound drifts through the camp like smoke. The melody bends around the wind and settles near the fires, fragile but persistent. For a few minutes the camp feels like a village again, a rough frozen village built from longing and melody. You almost forget where you are. Then the wind returns, and the song folds into it like a leaf swept away by a river. Someone laughs softly. It's the corporal from Minsk, the one who collects his vodka ration in a red-marked canteen. He says music burns better than wood, and maybe he's right. Every song leaves a trace of warmth behind, faint but real. The men look at him and smile. It's easier to agree than to disagree in temperatures like this. Lunch, if you can call it that, arrives in a metal pot. It's soup made from whatever could be boiled that wasn't already needed elsewhere. You eat quickly before it cools. The taste more texture than flavour. Someone drops a spoon. It clatters against the frozen ground, a sharp, metallic note that sounds almost like applause. You all laugh again, because everything here is absurd enough to be funny. After the meal, the priest visits. He's thin as wire, wrapped in a coat that might once have been black. He doesn't preach anymore. He just moves from man to man, nodding, murmuring a few words. He doesn't carry a Bible now. It froze and tore weeks ago. He uses memory instead. When he reaches you, he smiles faintly, presses a small wooden cross into your palm and says, "Keep it close. It's good for warmth." You thank him, because there's nothing else to say. As evening falls, the wind sharpens. The fires burn lower, the smoke thick with damp wood and sorrow. A group of men huddle near the centre of camp, passing a bottle between them. They drink in turns, heads tilted back, eyes half closed. One of them toasts, "To our fingers, may we keep at least half." The others laugh. Someone else adds, "To our faith, may it thaw before we do." Another round of laughter. The humour here isn't sharp. It's dull and rounded, softened by exhaustion. You take your own sip when it comes to you. The liquid hits the back of your throat and spreads out, false and lovely. You imagine it lighting your insides like a candle under frost. For a second, you think you can feel your fingertips again. You know it's an illusion, but illusions are all that's left to believe in. Later, as darkness crawls back across the snow, the singing starts again. Louder this time, steadier. Voices blend into one another, untrained but united. It isn't harmony, it's survival set to rhythm. Some of the words slur into nothing. Others ring clear, about mothers, about fields, about a sun that will one day return. The sound travels beyond the camp, past the broken trees and trenches, out into the open night. You imagine the enemy hearing it from across the distance, wondering what kind of army sings in a graveyard of snow. They'd never guess the answer is simple. An army that still wants to feel human. Your breath forms clouds that drift upward and vanish. You stare into the fire, its flames bending like tired dancers. The vodka bottle stands nearby, half empty, waiting. You take another drink, just enough to chase the chill from your throat. The warmth arrives like an old friend who always forgets to leave. The medic returns, crouches near the fire and warms his hands. He doesn't say much, just watches the flames. After a while, he whispers, "They say frostbite hurts less when you stop fighting it." You nod, though you're not sure if it's comfort or warning. Maybe it's both. The men begin to settle, pulling coats around their shoulders, curling up near the embers. Someone hums the melody again, quieter this time. You lie back on the ground, your body pressed into the straw and ice. The stars above are faint, blurred by breath and smoke. You try to count them, but numbers lose meaning somewhere after 5. Your fingers ache, your toes ache. Then they stop. You touch your hands to your chest and feel the cross the priest gave you. The wood is cold, smooth. You close your eyes and picture it glowing faintly, like a small ember of faith still refusing to die. Around you, the last notes of the song fade into the wind. The world grows still, then quieter still. You think, not for the first time, that warmth has many disguises. Sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's drink, and sometimes it's just the sound of men singing into the cold, hoping that someone, anyone, is still listening. You remember the day the order arrived because the air itself seemed to tighten. The messenger came on horseback, wrapped in a coat that had seen too many owners. He carried a single folded sheet of paper sealed in red wax, a colour chosen so everyone would understand before even reading it. Blood first, words second. The officers gathered around as he read aloud, his voice trembling slightly. Not one step back, it said. That was the command. No retreat, no surrender. Cowardice would be punished by death. The soldiers listened in silence, the kind of silence that makes even snow hesitate to fall. Then someone coughed, someone else cursed under his breath, and the moment dissolved into ordinary fear. Later that evening, the same officer who read the order stood by the fire with a bucket of vodka and announced, 1 cup per man. The contradiction was so perfect it almost felt poetic. They call it discipline, the kind of discipline that needs to be softened before it can be swallowed. You stand in line, metal cup in hand, waiting for your turn. The man in front of you jokes that if you drink enough, the order won't sound so bad. You don't laugh, but you do agree with him by taking your own portion when it comes. The vodka burns as it always does, cutting through the taste of dread with something easier to digest. Later that night, someone sets up the execution posts. 3 wooden poles, rough, uneven, nothing special. They lean slightly in the wind, as though already tired of their new job. The men assigned to the firing squad drink before the ceremony. It isn't cruelty, it's survival of the nerves. The condemned men drink too, a final mercy, or maybe a cruel one. No one can decide. When the shots ring out, the sound merges with laughter from the other side of camp, where a group is toasting victory in a battle not yet fought. The hypocrisy is so casual it almost becomes background noise. You hear an officer shout, "Confiscate all private bottles," only to see him later that evening sharing one with his aide. Orders are like weather here. They change constantly, and everyone pretends to be surprised each time. One day the vodka is banned, the next it's mandatory. Somewhere in Moscow, a committee probably keeps a chart titled Courage per Liter. In the morning, the political officer arrives with a speech about patriotism. He quotes poetry about fire and steel and the unbreakable will of the Soviet man. His words freeze in the air, half slogans, half frost. When he finishes, he raises a small flask and says, "To the motherland." Everyone cheers, partly out of fear, partly out of thirst. You raise your cup too, because that's what loyalty looks like when you're cold. A clerk in the supply tent keeps records of every ration. He writes each man's name, the amount issued, the signature, the empty gesture of accountability. His handwriting shakes so badly that half the names look like the same word. Maybe they are. He files the reports under headings like morale distribution and psychological stabilization. You imagine these papers travelling back to headquarters, stamped and archived, proof that the army is both sober and patriotic. Bureaucracy has its own sense of humour. Sometimes when the firing squads line up, you hear a strange echo. The crack of rifles followed by the faint clinking of cups, toasts whispered under breath. To those who went backward. It isn't rebellion. It's resignation, dressed as ritual. No one knows what courage means anymore, only what it costs. That evening, snow falls again, slow, deliberate flakes that seem to consider where to land. The men huddle around the fire, faces red from drink and cold. Someone tells a story about a commander who once tried to lead a charge sober and got shot in the leg before he made it 20 steps. See, the storyteller says, sobriety is bad for morale. Laughter follows, dry and brittle like frozen twigs snapping. You laugh too, though the joke isn't funny. It's just true in a way that truth shouldn't be. An officer passes by, his coat buttoned tight, his boots polished against reason. He stops, glares at the group and mutters something about discipline. Then he takes a cup from his pocket, fills it from the bottle near the fire and walks away. Everyone nods silently. It's good to see leadership by example. You think about the meaning of the order again, not one step back. You picture it written on stone, carved deep enough to survive centuries of frost. But you know it wasn't meant for eternity. It was meant for control. A line drawn in snow, impossible to see, easier to break. You wonder if anyone at headquarters ever realised that soldiers move forward only when they believe they can stop. When dawn returns, pale and indifferent, the remnants of the night's fire smoulder faintly. Empty cups lie scattered, their rims coated with ice. You pick one up, hold it to the light, and see your own reflection bent and blurred. The metal is cold, but for a second it feels alive. You think of all the toasts that cuppers carried, for courage, for punishment, for the condemned. You rinse it with snow and hang it from your belt. You'll need it again soon. By midday, the messenger comes back, bringing another order. More paperwork, more signatures, more certainty that someone, somewhere, still believes words can control weather. The men gather again, shoulders hunched, listening. No one asks what it says this time. They already know. Whatever the command, the vodka will follow. It's the one order everyone obeys. That night the stars appear briefly between clouds. They shine like holes in the ceiling of the world, letting a little warmth leak through. You lie down beside the dying fire, coat pulled tight, flask close at hand. The phrase, "not one step back," echoes softly in your head, mixing with the memory of laughter and gunfire. You close your eyes and think, not for the first time, that maybe the real command is simpler, not one sip less. It begins with a shout that sounds like thunder trapped in a tin can. The order to advance. The command spreads through the trenches like a cold wave. You tighten your gloves, check your rifle, and wait for the part that everyone dreads but pretends to crave. The moment before movement. The world holds its breath. Then, as if remembering its cue, the sergeant raises a flask. "Liquid nerve," he says, and the men cheer half-heartedly. The bottle passes from hand to hand, each soldier taking a mouthful. You do the same, because refusing would look like fear, and fear is expensive here. The vodka bites hard, sharper than frost, then melts into something that almost feels like courage. You know it isn't. You know it's chemistry pretending to be faith. But for the next few minutes, it works. Someone starts humming an old battle tune, the kind that promises victory without describing what it costs. Boots shuffle in rhythm. The air smells of oil, mud and alcohol, a mixture you've learned to recognise as preparation. You can feel your heartbeat slowing, not speeding, as the drink begins its quiet trick. The edges of thought soften. The cold loses its teeth. The fear loses its name. Then the whistle blows. The sound slices through the fog like a knife through a dream. Men surge forward, yelling words that don't sound like language anymore. You move with them, not by choice, but by gravity. Snow sprays underfoot, white mixed with black, mud mixed with blood. The world becomes a single heartbeat stretched thin. The vodka makes the scene feel distant, almost cinematic. You see flashes of light from artillery, hear explosions roll across the plain like waves against a stone shore. Somewhere ahead, the enemy is a shape, a rumour, a reflection in smoke. You aim because that's what your hands remember to do even when your mind has wandered somewhere warmer. For a moment, time slows. The man beside you is laughing, actually laughing, as he fires into the mist. Another throws a grenade, slips and falls. You reach for him, but he's already gone, swallowed by noise. The vodka tells you it's fine, that everything is fine, that fine is whatever you decide it to be. You keep moving. A shell lands nearby, close enough to knock the sense out of your ears. The ground lifts, spins and settles again. You taste metal and snow. You blink, expecting to see nothing. Instead, you see everything too clearly. The torn earth, the shattered trees, the sky too pale for this much death. The vodka has turned fear into focus, at least for now. When the attack pauses, the survivors regroup in a ditch. Someone has a bottle, miraculously unbroken. He holds it up like a trophy. "For courage," he says, and everyone nods. Though what they really mean is, for not thinking too much. You take your turn. The drink burns again, deeper this time. It fills the gaps left by adrenaline and replaces them with quiet emptiness. A young soldier next to you wipes blood from his face. Not his own, you think, and asks what bravery is supposed to feel like. No one answers. You want to tell him that it feels exactly like this. Numb hands, ringing ears, and a stomach full of liquid illusions. But you just hand him the bottle instead. Some lessons don't need words. The sky begins to snow again, slow and heavy, as if ashamed of what it's covering. The flakes settle on rifles, helmets, open eyes. The white spreads until everything looks the same. The living, the dead, the ground itself. You can't tell who's winning, or if that question even matters anymore. Someone shouts a command, and the group moves forward again. This time there's no shouting, no songs, no noise except the crunch of boots and the occasional crack of gunfire. You march through smoke that smells faintly of burnt wheat. The smell reminds you of bread, which reminds you of hunger, which reminds you to drink again. The circle completes itself. At the top of a small rise you stop. Below, the field stretches out. A vast, uneven canvas of grey. You can see figures moving in the distance like shadows trying to remember their purpose. You raise your rifle, then lower it again. The drink makes it hard to tell where your hands end and the weapon begins. You wait for someone to give an order. None comes. Behind you the political officer appears, his face bright red from cold and conviction. He waves his pistol in the air, shouting about honour and destiny. You watch his lips move, but the words reach you only as rhythm. He trips, recovers, then takes a quick sip from his coat pocket before continuing his sermon. The men cheer, not because they believe him, but because it's easier than thinking. The battle drags on until the light fades. When the order to retreat finally comes, it's whispered, not shouted. You stumble back toward what used to be the line. The ground is littered with rifles, boots and bottles. The bottles outnumber the rifles. You step carefully, not out of respect, but because glass makes treacherous footing. At camp, the fires are small and silent. The surviving men sit in a circle, staring at nothing. No one counts how many are missing. The count changes too often to matter. A sergeant limps around, distributing the evening ration, one small cup each, as always. He doesn't make a speech, he doesn't have to. The drink explains itself. You raise your cup, the metal cold against your fingers. The steam from your breath curls around it like smoke. Someone murmurs a toast, simple and unsteady. To those who ran forward. Everyone drinks. The burn is sharp, then soft, then gone. It leaves behind the same familiar emptiness, the one that passes for peace. You lie down on your bedroll, staring at the dim sky through the hole in the tent. The stars are faint, blurred by frost. Your body trembles, but it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like exhaustion, trying to pretend it's something noble. The vodka hums quietly in your veins, telling you that you were brave today. You believe it just long enough to sleep. In the morning, You'll wake to another whistle, another bottle, another lesson in temporary courage. You'll drink again, not because it helps, but because it fills the space where reason used to live. Out here, bravery isn't measured in victories or medals. It's measured in milliliters, and you've had just enough to keep marching. It begins with the wind whispering your name. You think it might be the wind, or it might be the man beside you. When you turn, he's asleep, mouth half open, breath turning to crystals. The whisper comes again, softer, closer. You smile before realizing you don't know why. Out here, the mind plays tricks, and the vodka helps it along. The snow glows faintly under a dull moon. Everything else is shadow. The trees, the tents, the men curled like commas in the frozen sentence of night. You lie on your back, eyes open, watching flakes drift down. They seem to fall slower than they should, as if time itself has grown tired. You count them for a while. You stop when you forget what number comes after 20. There are footsteps nearby, slow and careful. You sit up. A shape moves between the trees carrying something. It's the corporal from Minsk, you think, the one who collects his ration in a red-marked canteen. You call to him, but he doesn't answer. He just keeps walking, his outline soft around the edges. The snow swallows his sound. You watch until he fades completely, like a photograph left too close to fire. When you wake the next morning, he's gone. No footprints, no trace. You mention it to the medic later, and he nods absently. Dreams walk here too, he says. They just leave fewer tracks. You decide not to ask what that means. By afternoon, the world feels heavier, as if gravity itself has doubled. The sky presses down on you like an extra coat. The men move slowly, their faces pale and waxy. No one talks much anymore. Speech wastes breath. You catch yourself staring at things that aren't there. A door, a lamplight, a hand reaching out of the snow. They vanish when you blink. The vodka doesn't help. It only makes the vanishing smoother. That night the wind changes. It comes from the east, carrying whispers that sound almost like music. You pull your blanket around you, close your eyes, and listen. The melody is faint, just a thread of sound weaving through the trees. You imagine it's a song from home, something your mother hummed while cooking. The smell of bread fills your nose, warm, rich, impossible. You can almost see her standing by the stove, smiling. Then the smoke from the fire shifts and she's gone. You open your eyes. The snow looks exactly the same as it always has. A soldier nearby mumbles in his sleep. You lean closer and hear him reciting a letter. His voice is calm, almost happy. "Dear Natasha," he says, "the weather here is good, the food is enough, and the men are cheerful." You want to laugh, but the sound catches in your throat. You know the letter will never reach anyone named Natasha. The censors will read it, change the words, and file it away with 1,000 others under cheerful. Later, when you take your night watch, the horizon begins to shift. The trees bend where there are no trees. The snow glows from underneath, a pale blue light like something breathing below the surface. You blink, hard. The light remains. It moves, slow and sinuous, like water under ice. You step closer and feel the ground tremble faintly. For a moment you're certain the earth itself is alive. You whisper, "Stop." It does. You laugh quietly to yourself. It feels good to give an order the world actually obeys. The wind returns, colder now. It smells different, not like smoke or fuel, but something sweeter. You can't place it. It reminds you of apples, of autumn, of home. You breathe it in deeply and almost cry. You haven't smelled sweetness in months. You close your eyes and see your village again. The church steeple, the frozen river, the sound of bells. Then faintly you hear the bells for real. Or you think you do. You look around. No one else reacts. The bells keep ringing. You walk toward the sound, careful not to wake the others. The snow is deep, rising to your knees, muffling every step. The bells grow louder. The air thickens with a mist that smells like cider. You start to feel warm, wonderfully warm. You see light ahead, orange and gold, flickering through the trees. A fire, you think. You smile and walk faster. Then you blink. It's gone. The trees are just trees again, black and indifferent. The warmth vanishes, replaced by a chill so sharp it makes you gasp. You realise your face is wet, not from sweat, not from snow, from tears, frozen before they can fall. You stumble back toward camp, heart pounding, breath short. You don't tell anyone what you saw. The men have enough ghosts of their own. Back by the fire, you take a long drink from your flask. It burns deeper than usual. The warmth spreads outward, forgiving you for being foolish. You close your eyes again and see the lights from before. This time, you let them stay. The medic says the hallucinations are from fatigue, hunger, and cold. The brain just wants to go somewhere better, he explains. You nod as though it makes sense, though you're not sure what better means anymore. Maybe it's just a place with fewer orders and more silence. At dawn, you wake to find your boots frozen to the ground. The snow around you glitters faintly, almost pretty if you don't think too hard. Someone nearby is laughing again, quietly, talking to no one. You look at him, and for a moment you see another face superimposed on his, someone younger, softer, untouched by this endless winter. Then you blink, and the illusion melts. You wonder how many of the men you see each day are still really here, and how many have already wandered off into their own mirages. It doesn't matter. You've learned that in war, the body stays long after the mind has gone walking. That evening before sleep, you whisper a small prayer, though you're not sure to whom. You ask for clear dreams, or no dreams at all. The snow outside glows faintly under another full moon. The vodka ration waits beside your bedroll. You drink half, leave half. Moderation, you think, is a kind of hope. You lie back, the wind humming through the cracks of the tent. Somewhere between waking and sleep, you hear footsteps again, slow, deliberate, familiar. You open your eyes but don't move. A figure stands in the doorway, face hidden, shoulders dusted with snow. It lifts a hand in greeting. You don't know if it's the corporal from Minsk or something else entirely. You nod anyway. Then you close your eyes and let the snow have the rest. The paper is thin, the kind that tears when you breathe too close. You smooth it across your knee, careful not to stain it, though that's impossible now. Everything here smells faintly of smoke, grease, and alcohol. Even the air that escapes your lungs. You dip your pencil into the small tin of melted wax used as ink, scratch the first words, and pause. Dear Mother. The pencil shakes slightly, not from emotion, from cold. You stare at the words for a long time before writing the next ones. The letters look uneven, drifting across the page like lost soldiers. You stop again and take a sip from your flask. The taste burns, steadies the hand, and blurs the thought. Then the words begin to flow. Not truth, but something easier to live with. You tell her that you're fine, that the food is good, that you've made friends who sing while they work. You describe the snow as beautiful, because that's a word that can survive the censor's red pencil. You mention the sunrise, though you haven't seen one in weeks. You tell her not to worry. You end with, your loving son. The irony isn't lost on you. The last time you felt young enough to be anyone's son was several winters ago. When you finish, you look down at the page. It's damp at the edges, faintly yellowed by the smoke from the fire. The words shimmer slightly as if refusing to stay still. You hold it close to the flame to dry it, then fold it neatly, the creases crisp and final. The paper carries the smell of your hands, gun oil and vodka, the scent of a man who has nothing left to send but proof of survival. Around you, others are writing too. Some whisper as they form the words, as if dictating to ghosts. One man sketches a crude drawing of a woman holding flowers. Another writes only names, a list, maybe of friends, maybe of regrets. The political officer walks past collecting the letters. He smiles, a professional smile, one he's practiced in mirrors. He says he'll make sure they get home. Everyone thanks him because hope is more important than accuracy. Later that evening, you see him again by the fire reading through the letters before sealing them. You watch as he scratches out certain phrases, replaces them with better ones. Cold becomes fresh air. Hungry becomes well-fed. Drunk becomes cheerful. The pen moves quickly, confident. You almost admire the efficiency. The truth has always been easy to edit. It's the lies that take work. When the officer finishes, he ties the letters together with a piece of twine. The stack looks fragile, almost holy. He sets it beside his satchel and opens a bottle. The smell drifts across the camp, sweet, sharp, familiar. He drinks, then picks up one of the letters again, reading it with blurred eyes. You wonder if he knows how much of himself he's erased too. The mail comes back once a month, maybe less. You receive a letter from your sister. It's brief, written in a careful, practiced script. She tells you the crops were poor, but the family is well. She says the church bells still ring on Sundays. She tells you to stay warm. You read it 3 times, searching between the lines for what she isn't allowed to say. Then you fold it and keep it in your breast pocket, close to the flask. Faith and alcohol, 2 liquids that keep the heart from freezing. One night you dream that you're writing again. The pencil glides smoothly. The page stays clean. The words come easily. I am alive. I am warm. I am whole. You wake to find your hand moving in the air, tracing the letters against darkness. The dream fades, but the movement stays, as if the body remembers comfort even when the mind doesn't. By the next morning, the ink in your tin has frozen solid. You warm it near the fire, careful not to let it boil. The smell of burned wax fills the tent. A new letter begins, addressed to no one in particular. To whoever reads this, it says, the nights are long. The drink helps. The snow listens better than people. You stop, unsure what else to write. The words feel like footprints leading nowhere. A comrade leans over your shoulder, squints at the page and grins. Write to the vodka, he says. It's the only thing that writes back. You laugh quietly, more out of politeness than amusement. Then you take his advice. On the next line you write, Dear Vodka, thank you for the courage, the confusion, and the company. You've been the only steady officer here. You fold the page and toss it into the fire. The flame flares briefly as if laughing too. When letters are distributed again, one man refuses to open his. He holds it to his face, eyes closed, breathing deeply. It smells like home, he says. You know he's lying. It smells like smoke and vodka, just like everything else. But you don't correct him. Some lies are meant to be shared. That night the wind picks up, carrying scraps of burned paper through the air. They glow for a moment, then disappear into darkness. You watch them drift and think of all the words that never arrive, all the truths left wandering between here and home. Somewhere in that distance, your mother might still be reading your first letter, the one that said, The weather is kind, and the men are cheerful. You hope she believes it. You almost do. You take one last drink before sleep. The liquid burns the same as always. Steady, predictable, loyal. You whisper to the empty flask, you're the only thing that delivers. Then you close your eyes, listening to the rustle of paper in the wind. It sounds almost like applause, faint and far away, as if the night itself is approving your lies. The first thing you learn about war is that money doesn't work anymore. Not paper, not coins. The only currency left is liquid and clear, traded by the swallow. Vodka buys what rubles can't. Warmth, silence, and sometimes forgiveness. It's the one thing the front never runs out of, even when food, medicine, and patience have all been consumed. At the camp's edge, the barter line forms every evening, a quiet market without stalls. Men shuffle forward holding tin cups, bottles and flasks, each with a slight different value. A few drops can get you a cigarette. Half a cup might buy a pair of socks with more holes than fabric. A full bottle can do almost anything. Fix a punishment, erase a mistake, buy a night's sleep in someone else's shelter. The exchange rate changes daily, but the principle never does. In a place where nothing grows, only spirits circulate. You've traded your share more than once. Once for tobacco, once for an extra piece of bread, once for a scrap of paper to write on. You never feel cheated. The vodka always returns. It's patient. It travels from hand to hand, mouth to mouth, until everyone ends up paying the same price. The villagers know the system too. When the soldiers arrive, the locals emerge quietly from their houses, heads bowed but eyes alert. They've learned what a bottle is worth. Milk for vodka, eggs for vodka, sometimes even silence for vodka. You've seen a mother hand over her only jug of milk just to make a soldier leave. No one calls it theft. It's an exchange of fear. Once, in a small village half buried in snow, you watched a soldier trade an entire bottle for a pair of wool mittens. The old man who made the deal took one careful sip, nodded and said, "You bought my warmth with your own." Both walked away satisfied, though you couldn't tell who had won. The quartermaster keeps records of every shipment. His logbook lists vodka between boots and ammunition, just as if it were another kind of weapon. Maybe it is. The soldiers joke that it's the only supply that never freezes. The truth is that it does freeze, just slower than hope. When the barrels arrive, men gather around them like worshippers at shrine. The smell alone can make a person dizzy. There's a man in your unit who makes a living from this trade. Everyone calls him the accountant. He has no papers, no official role, but he keeps track of who owes whom. A liquid ledger written entirely in memory. He can tell you the going rate for a pair of boots, a tin of beans, or a favour from an officer. When asked why he does it, he shrugs and says, "Numbers are cleaner than conscience." You believe him. You once tried to give up your ration just to see what would happen. The next day, 3 men offered trades before breakfast. One for sugar, one for a candle, one for half a cigarette. By evening, even the officer asked if you were feeling ill. It turns out that refusing vodka is more suspicious than drinking too much. So you started again. There's safety in conformity, even when conformity comes in a bottle. The system reaches everywhere. A wounded man offers his ration to the medic before surgery. Payment in advance. Another bribes the cook for extra ladles of soup. You've seen vodka poured into engines to thin the fuel, onto wounds to fake anesthesia, even into lamps when oil runs out. In a world stripped of everything else, alcohol becomes invention. It solves problems it creates. You begin to notice the smell long before you taste it. It's in the fabric of coats, in the breath of officers, in the letters sent home. It mixes with smoke, sweat, and the faint sweetness of rot. You wonder if someday the world will remember this war not by its battles but by its scent. The smell of cold men pretending to be warm. One night a soldier offers to sell you a family photograph. He says it's from a farmhouse they passed weeks ago, left behind by someone who won't need it anymore. The picture shows a woman and a small boy standing in front of a barn. Their faces are faint, blurred by time. You trade half your ration for it. Later, by the fire, you stare at it for a long time. The faces don't look like anyone you know, but somehow they make you feel known. When you wake up, the photo is gone. You don't ask who took it. Everything here belongs to someone else eventually. The accountant keeps a bottle buried in the snow wrapped in cloth. He calls it his savings account. For after, he says, though no one knows what after means. You picture him digging it up years from now, older, still counting, still trading. The idea makes you strangely happy. Maybe the only kind of future left is the one preserved in ice. Sometimes you imagine what would happen if all the vodka disappeared overnight. You think the army might simply stop moving. The machinery of morale would seize up like frozen metal. Orders would go unread, rifles unfired. Men would sit quietly, waiting for a warmth that never comes. You almost wish for it, just to see the silence. But the next morning, the barrels arrive again, each marked with neat black letters and the faint scent of ethanol and bureaucracy. The supply line is flawless. The quartermaster nods, satisfied. The men cheer, half in relief, half in ritual. You join them, cup in hand. The liquid splashes into your tin, reflecting the firelight like molten glass. You raise it, half a toast, half a surrender. To trade, you say softly, the only thing that never ends. The others echo you, their voices low and steady. The snow outside falls in slow, deliberate flakes, covering everything it can. The tracks, the trades, the things you'd rather forget. You drink, and the warmth spreads like commerce through your veins. The night hums quietly, balanced on the edge between need and numbness. The field hospital is not really a hospital. It is a tent that smells of metal, smoke, and damp wool. The snow outside glows faintly blue through the thin fabric walls. Inside, the light comes from candles set in jars, flickering like exhausted stars. The air hums with low voices and the faint clatter of instruments. Not the clean, polished kind you might imagine, but the dull ones that have been boiled too many times and still remember every hand they've touched. You lie on a cot waiting for the medic. He moves from man to man, quiet as a ghost, sleeves rolled to his elbows, face set in that expression doctors use when compassion has been replaced by habit. His hands are raw from cold and disinfectant, trembling slightly as he works. Beside him, a tin bowl filled with water freezes around the edges between uses. He breaks the ice with the handle of his scalpel, as calmly as someone stirring tea. The patient before you bites down on a strip of leather while the medic pulls shrapnel from his leg. There's no anesthesia, just the sound of metal on bone and the steady rhythm of breathing through clenched teeth. Then, mercifully, the medic reaches for a small bottle. He pours a little vodka over the wound, then into the man's mouth. The hiss and the gasp come almost together. Internal and external disinfectant, the medic says. No one laughs. When your turn comes, it's for a deep cut on your arm, small enough to live with but large enough to need attention. The medic cleans it with a rag soaked in vodka. The sting is sharp, clean, almost exhilarating. You feel the heat crawl up your arm and into your head. There, he says softly. It'll heal or it won't. Either way, it'll stop bleeding. You nod, not sure which part was meant as reassurance. On the next cot, a soldier is having a tooth pulled. He swigs from a bottle, swallows, and nods for the medic to begin. The pliers slip once, twice, then grip. There's a crunch, a groan, and then it's done. The soldier spits blood into a tin cup and raises it in a small salute. To modern medicine, he says hoarsely, someone mutters, and to the distillery that made it possible. A few smiles appear, faint and weary. Humour is its own sedative. The medic keeps a small ledger of supplies, bandages, iodine, rations, all dwindling. But the vodka column never runs out. Every shipment arrives on time, as if the gods themselves handle its transport. He calls it the one reliable cure. It doesn't heal, he says, but it makes the pain polite. You believe him. Occasionally he uses it for things no manual would recommend. He pours it over frozen limbs, believing it might trick the blood into returning. He mixes it with snow to clean instruments when water runs low. Once he lights it to sterilize a needle, watching the blue flame dance briefly before vanishing. The flame smells faintly sweet, like burnt sugar and surrender. At night, the hospital tent becomes quiet except for the breathing, heavy, uneven, stubborn. The medic sits by the small stove staring at his hands. You ask him how he manages to keep doing this. He shrugs and says, "Everyone drinks something. I just drink work." Then, after a pause, he adds, "But sometimes I cheat." He reaches into his coat and produces a flask, unscrewing it with practiced care. You pretend not to notice. Mercy has its rituals too. One evening, a group of wounded soldiers start singing. Their voices are thin, almost translucent, but the melody holds. It's a song about rivers and home, about people who wait by the window long after the waiting has stopped making sense. The sound drifts through the tent like smoke, curling around the cots. You hum along quietly. The medic joins in after a verse, off-key but sincere. For a few minutes the tent feels warmer, not in temperature but in memory. Later, a courier brings a message from headquarters, a new directive. Alcohol use must be monitored closely. The medic reads it, sighs, and places it under a leg of the stove to keep it from wobbling. Effective immediately, he says dryly. The stove stands steady all night. You dream of hospitals that smell like soap, not smoke. Rooms with white walls, clean sheets, gentle hands. When you wake, you find your sleeves stiff with dried blood and your flask half empty. The dream fades, leaving only the faint sweetness of the alcohol still lingering in the air. By morning, the medic is already up, boiling instruments in the same pot used for soup. He hums the same tune from the night before. Outside, the wind howls like a sermon. Inside, the small blue flame flickers again. He pours a measure into your cup and says, "For breakfast, for circulation." You drink because refusing would feel ungrateful. The warmth spreads, slow and deceptive, a familiar lie told kindly. A new patient arrives before noon. A young soldier, barely more than a boy, arm shattered from a grenade blast. He's shaking, teeth clenched, eyes wild. The medic gives him a drink first. The boy downs it, coughs, then smiles faintly. "Better," he whispers. "Much better." Then the cutting begins. The tent fills with the smell of iron and alcohol, sharp and almost holy. You look away, staring at the wall until it stops moving. That night, as you prepare to leave the tent, the medic stops you. He hands you a small bottle, corked and half full. "For the pain," he says. You ask which pain he means. He smiles. "Whichever one you choose." You thank him, though words feel too small. Outside, the cold hits like a clean sheet pulled from a frozen river. You take a sip from the bottle, and it burns through you, soft and merciless. The camp lights flicker in the distance, dim as candles in a cathedral of snow. You whisper a toast to no one in particular, to medicine and the mercy that tastes like fire. The wind doesn't answer, but it carries the scent of the hospital tent, smoke, blood, and something faintly sweet, farther than you can see. The snow changes colour before you realise you've crossed a border. It is still white, but it feels different, heavier, quieter, the way a church feels different from a barracks. Someone says you've entered Poland, someone else says East Prussia. No one knows for sure. The signs are gone, the villages are half buried, and the war doesn't care about geography anyway. The map ends, but the orders keep going. You're a liberator now, or so they tell you. The word sounds grander than it feels. You've been marching for days through villages where no one comes out to greet you. The houses lean, half collapsed, windows empty. Dogs bark, then disappear. Somewhere a door slams and echoes like a rifle shot. You raise your weapon, then lower it again. Only the wind answers. At the edge of one village you find a well, frozen over but still marked with a wooden sign. Vodka. You chip at the ice, dig with the butt of your rifle, and scoop out what little liquid remains. It smells faintly of soil and metal. You taste it anyway. It's not water. Someone behind you laughs and says, "See? Even their wells know what we prefer." You turn to find him holding a bottle, waving it like a flag. The vodka has followed you across the front as faithfully as any soldier. There are always bottles somewhere. Cellars, barns, cupboards, waiting to be discovered, claimed and emptied. The officers call it morale. The men call it a souvenir. You just call it inevitable. That night, the unit camps in a farmhouse. The family that lived here is gone. The walls are covered with old pictures, their faces staring down as if still waiting for permission to speak. The table is set with mismatched plates. You sit, not because you're hungry, but because sitting feels civilized. The sergeant finds another bottle and sets it in the middle. Someone toasts to liberation. The word tastes strange. You drink anyway. Outside, the wind pushes against the shutters, making them creak like old bones. Inside, the fire burns low and uneven, casting shadows that move more confidently than the men themselves. You watch one of them stumble, laughing, nearly fall into the hearth. The others cheer, not because it's funny, but because it's familiar. The noise feels like proof that you still exist. Later, the door opens. A woman stands there, thin and pale, her hair tied back with a strip of cloth. She looks at the soldiers, at the bottles, at the room that used to be hers. No one moves. The silence stretches until it becomes unbearable. Then an officer stands, smiling too widely, and offers her a drink. She shakes her head. He insists. She steps back, fear flashing across her face like lightning. You look away. The moment passes, or at least pretends to. The woman leaves. The officer sits back down, saying nothing. The men drink faster after that, as if to fill the space she left behind. The laughter grows louder, then stops abruptly when someone knocks over the bottle. It shatters, the liquid spilling across the table, darkening the wood. No one moves to clean it. You all just watch as the firelight catches the glass and turns it gold. For a moment it's beautiful. Then the smell fills the room again, sharp, sweet and sour, and you feel sick. The next day, you march through another village. Children stand at a distance watching silently. One boy, maybe 8 years old, lifts an invisible bottle to his lips and tilts his head back, mimicking the gesture perfectly. The men laugh. You don't. The boy grins, proud of his performance. A woman pulls him away by the arm, scolding him softly. Her eyes meet yours for a moment, not angry, not pleading, just tired. Then she turns away. That night, you can't stop thinking about that look. You drink to forget it, which helps for a while. But when you wake before dawn, your throat dry and your mouth tasting of iron, the image returns. The woman's eyes, the boy's grin. You try to shake it off, but the vodka doesn't erase everything. It only moves the guilt to quieter corners of the mind, where it can live undisturbed. At dawn, the company receives new orders. Move west, keep advancing, keep liberating. The word repeats until it loses meaning. You pass through villages where the windows are boarded, where doors stay locked even when you knock. You stop asking for directions. You stop asking anything at all. The people here have nothing left to say, and neither do you. The officers speak of victory. The soldiers speak of rest. You speak of nothing. When someone hands you a cup, you drink out of reflex. The warmth spreads through your chest, and for a brief, treacherous moment, it feels like pride. You tell yourself this is what victory smells like: smoke, sweat, and alcohol. You tell yourself that's what heroes smell like too. It helps, a little. In one village, an old man stands in front of his house holding a small loaf of bread. He offers it to you. You hesitate, then take it. He nods and says something in a language you don't understand. His tone is gentle, but the meaning feels sharp. You want to believe he thanked you. You know he didn't. That evening, you sit by another fire, another ruined home, another bottle. The label is written in German script you can't read. You pour it anyway. The liquid burns colder than usual, like ice pretending to be flame. You raise your cup and whisper, "To peace," though the word feels too big for the mouth of a man who smells like liquor. The others join you. Cups clink. The sound is small, tired. You watch the flames dance against the broken walls and think how strange it is that victory feels so much like defeat, only louder. You close your eyes and imagine a future where people will tell this story differently. where you were brave, noble, sober. You almost believe it. The night deepens, the fire fades. Outside, the wind carries the faint sound of bells from a distant town. You lie back against the wall, coat pulled tight, bottle at your side. The scent of alcohol clings to you like a uniform you can't take off. Somewhere, a voice whispers the word liberator again, this time almost kindly. You laugh quietly because it's the only thing left to do. The map stopped making sense long before anyone admitted it. Roads were gone, rivers were frozen, and the names of towns had all begun to sound like echoes of one another. You carried a compass once, but now it only points toward confusion. The front lines shift each day, like a mirage that rearranges itself every time you blink. No one knows who's advancing and who's retreating anymore. The only reliable direction is away from the last place that tried to kill you. You march through mud that used to be snow, each step a small negotiation with gravity. The ground sucks at your boots as if it wants to keep something of you behind. The sound is steady, squelch, pause, breath, curse. A strange rhythm that becomes a kind of comfort. The men no longer talk about destinations. They talk about bearings, northish, westish, somewhere between orders and exhaustion. The commander still tries to sound sure. He holds the map open against the wind, his finger tracing lines that no longer exist. We'll regroup near the river, he says. Someone asks which river. He frowns and says, the big one. Everyone nods. That's enough geography for the day. At dusk, the fog rolls in, thick and deliberate. It blurs the horizon until even the sky feels lost. You can't tell where the land ends and the clouds begin. The men disappear into it one by one, their shapes dissolving like ink in water. You keep walking, trusting the sound of boots behind you more than the idea of command. Somewhere, someone hums a tune, slow and tuneless, just to remind themselves they're still here. When night comes, the cold returns with its familiar authority. Fires are forbidden now, too visible, too hopeful, so the only warmth is from movement. You stamp your feet, clap your hands, watch the mist rise from your breath and think it looks almost alive. A soldier nearby mutters, "East or west, the snow's the same." You agree silently. Direction has become just another superstition. In the dark, you step on something hard and metallic. You look down. It's a helmet, half buried, filled with frozen rain. You tip it over and watch the ice slide out like glass. Inside, someone has scratched a name. The letters are almost erased, but you can still make out the first word, home. You put the helmet back and keep walking. The officers argue quietly about tactics, their voices drifting through the fog. One insists they're heading toward victory, another says they're heading toward safety. Neither is right, and both know it. The argument fades into silence, replaced by the slow slosh of boots. The sound grows hypnotic, an orchestra of fatigue. You start thinking about time instead of distance. Morning doesn't arrive, it just happens. The sky lightens a little, reluctantly, as if forced. The men check their watches even though none of them work. It feels good to pretend. Someone says it's Tuesday, another says it's Sunday. You decide it doesn't matter. In this place, days are just different kinds of grey. At noon, the group stops beside a frozen pond. The ice is cracked in places like the surface of a forgotten mirror. You kneel and peer into it. Your reflection stares back, distorted and unfamiliar. The lines on your face look deeper, your eyes smaller. You barely recognise yourself. The man next to you laughs and says, "You look like you've aged backward, from soldier to ghost." You laugh too because it's easier than agreeing. Food has become a rumour. You chew on stale bread, sip melted snow and pretend it's enough. The vodka ration still arrives though. Somehow it always does. You drink a small cup and feel the burn travel down, settling like a promise that never delivers. The warmth spreads, brief and deceptive. You look around and realise everyone else is doing the same, small fires of denial flickering inside each body. That night, a snowstorm sweeps in. The wind howls through the trees like a choir of lost orders. You huddle under your coat, listening to it sing. It sounds almost human, the way loneliness sometimes does. You dream of maps again, of lines drawn in perfect order, clean and confident. In the dream, you follow them home. When you wake, the paper has turned to mud in your hands. The next morning you find a road, or something pretending to be one. It stretches ahead in both directions, disappearing into mist. A signpost stands crooked at the crossroads, the letters scraped away by wind. You run your hand over the wood and feel nothing but splinters. Someone asks which way to go. The lieutenant stares for a long time, then says, "Forward." No one asks what that means. You march again, boots sloshing in the half-frozen mud. The rhythm starts to sound like music. Left, right, left, right. A percussion of endurance. You realise the sound is familiar, the same as always. Whether advancing or retreating, it never changes. Maybe that's what makes armies work. They keep moving even when meaning stops. As the fog begins to lift, you see the faint outline of another unit in the distance. They're marching too from the opposite direction. For a moment, everyone hesitates. Are they friend or foe? The distance hides the answer. Then one of them raises a hand and someone on your side waves back. Both groups laugh nervously, relieved. You pass each other without a word, both heading forward, which might mean the same thing or nothing at all. When the sun sets again, if it's even the same sun, you make camp in a clearing surrounded by broken trees. The air smells of wood smoke and confusion. You sit on your pack, pull out the last of your bread, and take a small sip from your flask. The vodka tastes thinner now, weaker, as if it too is tired of pretending to help. You look around at the faces in the dim light. They're grey, featureless, blurred by exhaustion. The fog returns, swallowing everything except the sound of breathing. You listen closely, trying to remember which direction you came from. The thought fades before it finishes. You realise it doesn't matter. There are no directions left, only distances measured in mistakes. The boots keep sloshing, the breath keeps steaming, the night keeps pretending it's infinite, and you, like everyone else, keep moving because stopping would require a reason. Victory comes quietly, almost by accident. No trumpet, no sudden cheer, just a message that arrives folded inside another order. Someone reads it aloud in a hoarse voice. The enemy has surrendered. The men stare, waiting for the sky to react. It doesn't. Snow still falls. The wind still sighs. One soldier blinks, then laughs softly, as if the words were a joke told too late. You expect celebration, but what arrives instead is confusion. The war ends, but nothing changes. The fires burn, the boots march, the cups pass. The commandant calls for an assembly in a half-ruined barn. You stand shoulder to shoulder with 100 men who look almost identical in exhaustion. The smell of smoke and alcohol hangs so thick it feels like another uniform. The commandant steps forward. His face is pale, eyes small and watery. He's holding papers, official papers, the kind printed with enough stamps to look important. He clears his throat, then begins to speak. His voice cracks on the first sentence. "Comrades," he says, "we are victorious." The word lands awkwardly, like a stone dropped into mud. He keeps talking. Something about discipline, honour, reconstruction. You try to listen, but the rhythm of his speech is slower than the beating of your heart. Between sentences, he takes small sips from a glass he thinks no one sees. The men notice but say nothing. After years of war, you've all learned that hypocrisy sounds better when you're too tired to care. He waves one of the papers. It's a new regulation, apparently written yesterday, maybe by someone still half drunk on triumph. The order reminds all officers that drunkenness will not be tolerated. You glance at the Commandant's glass and nearly smile. The irony doesn't even sting anymore. It's just part of the landscape, like mud or snow. As he reads, his words slur slightly. You realise the speech is a performance, a hangover disguised as leadership. The men watch him with the same expression they use for campfires. Not admiration, just quiet dependence. The Commandant finishes with a toast to discipline, raising his glass halfway before catching himself. "For the motherland," he mutters. The crowd murmurs back, "For the motherland." The echo sounds tired, almost apologetic. Later, the officers gather in what used to be a farmhouse kitchen. The walls are cracked, the shelves empty, but someone has found a supply crate. Bottles line the table like new recruits awaiting inspection. A major insists they must celebrate in moderation. 10 minutes later, moderation is nowhere to be found. The laughter grows loud, the words blurred, the floor sticky with spilled promises. You stand by the doorway, watching. The scene feels both absurd and familiar. These are the same men who once signed death orders for cowardice. Now they toast each other for bravery, though none can stand straight. The bureaucracy of survival continues, only slightly drunker. You half expect someone to issue a decree about proper toasting technique. In a corner, an aide types up the day's report on a battered machine. Each key strikes with uneven rhythm, victory summarised in crooked letters. You glance at the paper as it rolls out. The ink is smudged, the edges wet with drink. At the bottom, under remarks, the aide writes, "Morale high. Situation stable." You want to laugh. Stability has never looked so unsteady. Outside, soldiers are dismantling barricades, stacking sandbags, and setting up new ones for reasons no one remembers. Old habits survive better than orders. A group near the gate sings a victory song out of tune. The chorus repeats the word home again and again, as if the repetition might turn it real. You watch them, realising some of these men have nowhere to return to. The war took their addresses as neatly as it took their youth. By afternoon, the Commandant calls for another briefing. He looks worse now, grey around the edges, voice reduced to a croak. The officers gather again, notebooks ready, pretending to record his every word. He tells them about the future, reconstruction, discipline, vigilance. Every few minutes he pauses, as though waiting for applause that never comes. When he finishes, someone starts clapping softly, the way you might clap for a tired actor. The Commandant nods, straightens his jacket and dismisses the meeting. Then, thinking no one is watching, he reaches for the nearest bottle. You leave quietly before he drinks. That evening the men receive new forms, inventories, requisitions, reports. The paper is thin, stained, slightly sticky. The ink smells faintly of alcohol, as if even bureaucracy can't sober up. You fill out your sheet anyway, listing supplies that don't exist and signing a name that doesn't feel like yours. At the bottom, there's a line for remarks. You hesitate, then write, "Victory confirmed, clarity pending." The camp grows quieter as night settles. Fires flicker inside oil drums. Someone reads poetry in a rough monotone. Someone else laughs at the wrong line. You lie on your back staring at the ceiling beams. Every so often droplets fall from the melting snow above, landing on your face. You let them. They feel clean, almost medicinal. Somewhere near the barn, a bottle breaks. The sound rings sharp and pure, like glass remembering what it was made for. No one shouts, no one moves to clean it. The sound fades, replaced by the hum of the wind through empty corridors. You close your eyes and listen. The Commandant's voice echoes faintly in your head. Words about victory, about discipline, about tomorrow. You realise they all sound the same now, interchangeable, as though the language of survival has only one tense, ongoing. You drift towards sleep. The air smells of smoke and frost. A line from the speech returns to you. The motherland thanks you. You whisper it softly, almost kindly, back into the dark. You're welcome, you say. It feels both sincere and absurd, like every toast you've ever made. Peace does not come with a sound. It arrives like a breath someone forgot to take. One morning, the guns simply stop. The silence that follows feels heavier than the explosions ever did. The men stand waiting for the next shell, the next order, the next reason to move. None comes. The wind blows through empty barrels and makes a low moan, like the battlefield sighing in disbelief. You tell yourself it is over, but your body refuses to believe it. It still flinches at thunder. It still looks for cover when doors slam. Even in rest, your fingers twitch, tracing the shape of a trigger that's no longer there. The vodka helps at first. It tells the nerves to sleep, tells the heart to slow down. But soon it starts giving orders of its own. Hospitals fill again, though this time not with the wounded, but with the shaking. Men line up in corridors, pale, sweating, eyes red. Their hands tremble as if remembering old explosions. Doctors whisper about nerves and exhaustion, about rest cures and patriotic recovery. The nurses just pour smaller cups of the same medicine that caused the disease. In this new peace, the line between treatment and indulgence has vanished. You sit on a hospital bed watching the man beside you pour half his ration into his tea. He says it helps him sleep. He's wrong. It helps him forget he can't. Every night the same dream returns, the whistle, the charge, the ground opening beneath your feet. You wake gasping, the pillow wet. You reach for the bottle before you wipe your face. Outside, parades begin. Banners flutter, bands play marches that used to sound heroic, now just tired. You watch them from the hospital window. The music is bright, the brass gleaming. The people cheer, throwing flowers into the street. The soldiers in the parade look clean, almost unreal. They smile and wave, carrying the same flag that followed you through snow and fire. For a moment, you almost feel proud. Then the wind shifts, and the smell of cheap vodka from a nearby tavern drifts through the window. It pulls you back like a command. Later, you're released with a certificate that says fit for civilian life. The doctor shakes your hand, though his grip trembles too. Outside the hospital gates, a man sells medals and bottles from the same cart. You buy one of each without thinking. The medal shines briefly in the sunlight before you tuck it into your pocket. The bottle you keep in your hand. You tell yourself it's symbolic, a final toast to survival, but you know better. The city is full of returning heroes, all carrying that same invisible weight. They walk in groups at first, then in pairs, then alone. Every tavern hums with their voices, rough, nostalgic, slightly slurred. They tell stories that grow more heroic each time, as if courage increases with distance from the battlefield. You listen, smile, raise your glass when they do. The laughter feels like therapy. The hangover feels like memory. Days pass, or maybe weeks. Time moves differently without danger. You try working, in a warehouse, on a dock, anywhere that pays in cash or drink. The rhythm of labour almost feels like marching, steady and predictable. But every evening ends the same. You drink with the others, to the past, to the comrades, to the things you lost but can't quite name. The toasts blur into one another. You forget who started them and why. One night, you catch your reflection in a dark window. You look almost respectable. Coat buttoned, medal on your chest, eyes bright from drink. But as you stare longer, you notice the tremor in your hand, the hollow in your cheeks. You realise you've been saluting yourself with the same glass for months. You laugh quietly, then pour another. The bottle stops being a companion and becomes a clock. It measures your days in sips. Morning, midday, evening, the hours blur, the edges soften. You start telling yourself you'll quit tomorrow. Tomorrow always looks convincing when you say it with a drink in hand. Sometimes, in the half-sober hours before dawn, you see them, the ghosts of the men who didn't make it back. They sit on the edge of your bed, quiet, polite, waiting. They don't accuse you, they just watch. You offer them a drink. They always refuse. That's how you know they're not real. The newspapers print stories about heroes rebuilding the nation. The writers never mention the taverns, the alleys, the hospital wards that still hum at midnight with laughter that sounds too loud to be happy. The state celebrates courage, not dependency. It hands out medals in daylight and bottles in the dark. You try to quit once. You pour what's left down a drain, listen to it swirl away like a small funeral. The next day, your hand shakes so badly you spill your tea. The day after, you buy another bottle. It feels like surrender, but also like relief. At least you know who's in charge now. A friend from your unit visits. He's sober, proud, neatly dressed. He tells you he's found peace. He speaks about family, work, the future. You nod at the right places, smile when required. When he leaves, you open the cupboard and find the bottle waiting, patient as ever. You drink, not because you need it, though you do, but because it's the only thing that still feels familiar. Outside, fireworks burst in the sky. It's some anniversary, Victory Day maybe. The sound rattles the windows, flashes of light painting the room red and white. For a moment you think you hear artillery again. Your body tenses, old reflexes waking like unwanted guests. You take another drink and the panic fades. You step outside, watch the sky explode, and realise that peace makes more noise than war ever did. When the last spark fades, the city grows quiet. Smoke hangs in the air, smelling faintly of powder and alcohol. You look at your bottle, at the reflection of the dying light trembling in the glass. The war ended years ago, but the front line never left your veins. It just changed uniforms. You raise your glass one more time and whisper, "To victory." The word tastes hollow, but the drink still burns. You think that maybe this is what surviving means, carrying the same habits into quieter rooms. You finish the glass and wait for silence to start feeling safe again. It doesn't. Berlin falls the way everything does in war, slowly, then all at once. You enter the city behind a haze of smoke and noise, stepping over bricks, glass and ghosts. The air smells of ash and victory, though you can't tell the difference anymore. The buildings lean as if ashamed, their windows staring blankly at the grey sky. The streets are quiet except for the crunch of boots and the rattle of bottles clinking in the soldiers' packs. They say the war is finished. The words move through the ranks like a rumour that refuses to settle. The men cheer, half-heartedly, not out of joy, but obligation. Someone shouts, "To the motherland!" and everyone raises whatever they're holding. Rifles, helmets, cups, a dented canteen. You raise yours too, because silence feels wrong. The toast hangs in the air a moment before dissolving into smoke. You stand in the middle of a street that was once grand. Statues toppled, flags burned, doors kicked in. Every surface carries a fingerprint of chaos. The city looks drunk, leaning, swaying, holding itself up by sheer habit. You can almost respect it for that. Orders come to gather in the square for the official celebration. The brass band sets up among the rubble, tuning instruments that haven't been in tune for years. The trumpet sounds sharp, the drums hollow. The melody is something triumphant, though it comes out weary and slow, like a march performed underwater. The officers stand at the front, medals polished, faces pale. They look like wax figures under the cloudy light. Someone brings crates of vodka, newly labelled for the occasion. The bottles are clear, the liquid clear, the purpose clearer. The first toast is for the fallen, the second for the survivors, the third for the future. By the fourth, no one remembers what they're drinking to. The band keeps playing, the rhythm getting softer as the bottles get lighter. You sip carefully, not out of restraint but out of fatigue. The vodka burns, then fades, leaving behind a taste you recognise as both comfort and punishment. Around you, men sing, some cry, Some shout names of people who'll never answer. The noise rises and falls like a tide made of grief and celebration intertwined. The commandant gives a speech. His voice carries through the smoke, practiced and hollow. He thanks the soldiers, praises the nation, promises reconstruction. His words bounce off the broken walls and return distorted, as if even the ruins are mocking him. He raises his glass high and declares, "To peace." The crowd repeats the word without conviction. You drink because everyone does. It's easier than thinking. As the sun begins to set, the city turns gold for a brief moment. The light catches on shattered glass and turns it beautiful. You look around and see faces glowing, eyes reflecting that impossible warmth. It almost feels like redemption. Then the light shifts, and the illusion breaks. You wander away from the crowd, down a side street that smells of dust and spilled liquor. The silence there is deeper, almost respectful. You sit on a stone step and take another drink. The taste is sharper now, like memory refusing to fade. You tilt your head back and watch the sky darken. A single bird crosses above, wings steady, indifferent. You envy it for knowing where to go. Behind you, laughter echoes. A group of soldiers dance awkwardly to the rhythm of their own voices. They look young, impossibly young, as if war has begun to unmake them. One falls, another helps him up. They cheer, shouting something about home. You smile, though you know most of them don't have one left to return to. You reach into your coat pocket and find the medal you bought from the cart outside the hospital. The ribbon is frayed, the metal dull. You hold it in your palm for a while, then set it beside the bottle. They belong together, the reward and the reason, two sides of the same currency. From somewhere nearby, a band begins playing again, this time slower, softer. The melody drifts through the air like the ghost of a lullaby. You remember hearing it once, far away, when you still believed songs could end differently. You close your eyes and let it fill the space where noise used to live. A young officer passes, his uniform spotless, his smile rehearsed. He salutes you and says, "We've won." You nod. He walks on. You whisper after him, "Then why does it feel like losing?" The wind takes the question before it can finish. Night deepens. Fires burn in the distance, flickering in the ruins like candles for a world already buried. You take another sip. The vodka no longer warms, it just marks time. Each swallow feels like a heartbeat, each heartbeat like a countdown. You wonder if peace is just another kind of exhaustion, quieter, but not gentler. You pour the last of the bottle onto the ground. The liquid sinks into the dust, vanishing instantly. It looks like an offering, though you don't know to whom. You whisper, "For the fallen, for the future, for the fools who believed in both." The words sound almost kind when spoken softly enough. The band stops. The square grows quiet again. Somewhere snow begins to fall, thin and delicate, the same snow that followed you from the steps to here. It drifts through the broken roofs, settles on the wreckage, softens the edges of everything. You watch it land on your hands, melting slowly, washing the smell of liquor from your skin. You close your eyes and breathe. The air tastes of smoke and frost, sharp and clean. For the first time in years, you can hear your own heartbeat without an echo. It feels foreign, like something borrowed. You think of all the toasts you've made, all the cups raised, all the warmth borrowed from a bottle. You think of the line that once was law, not one step back, and realise how many steps forward have led you nowhere. You whisper one last toast, barely audible, to what's left. You raise your empty cup to the snow. It catches a flake, cold and pure, and for a moment you almost mistake it for forgiveness. Then you set the cup down beside you, lean back against the stone wall, and let the quiet finish the story.